Over to you, Matt.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We do appreciate your time. We especially appreciate our presenters tonight. They have given up their time and their effort to organize presentations, to deliver to people. We are aware that we are still in a pandemic, unfortunately. So using these virtual meetings to even keep our local user group alive is great, but it also means we can extend it to the extended family around the world. So we have some speakers tonight that we would normally not be able to get in our local user group. All the speakers really. I don't think any of them are based in Manchester. I know Malin's definitely not based in Manchester. So it's a fantastic opportunity to be able to expand a bit more to not only the speakers but also the people. So if you are here from around the world, thank you for being here tonight. We're going to do things a little bit different tonight. We're going to do shorter sessions. So each session will be between sort of 15 to 20 minutes. We do realize that it's now October. We've been in lockdown since March, and that fatigue is starting to set in with virtual events. So we don't want to take up all your night. So we'll keep this short and sweet with some fantastic sessions and some fantastic people. So the agenda for tonight. So welcome introductions. We're going to do some user group news, which I'll just try and whiz through pretty quickly. Then we've got the fantastic, amazing, wonderful Clarissa Gillingham. Wi-Fi, where we're going, we don't need Wi-Fi. Bonus points if you know the film. It's one of my favorite films. I was actually really disappointed at the start of this year. I was supposed to go see the musical because I'm a massive fan, and they cancelled it because of COVID. So it's very sad. After Clarissa, we have Malin Martnes. She'll be talking about utilizing Teams for your Dynamics 365 solutions. Fantastic talk by a fantastic speaker. Malin's one of my best friends in this community and one of the most amazing people you've ever meet. And we're very lucky to have Malin here tonight. And we also have EY Kalman. You know him as the CRM Ninja. He is here tonight. If he doesn't like appear, it's just because he's a ninja. Although someone pointed out the other day that the ninja refers to the bike. But I think he's pretty ninja-like. He wears a lot of black.
Not just the bike.
Not just not just the bike. So we'll be talking to, or EY will be talking to us about our customer address pickers within Canvas apps, which is a cool topic. And then just to sum it all up at the end, we will have the virtual pub where we're all going is going to the Bespoke Badger. There are links at the end, and we'll drop them into the chat and things like that. But that is what we'll be doing. So virtual meeting tips. So you've probably been to a million of these right now, so you probably all know these things. So just keep your mic muted. You can drop messages into the chat. We'll try and pick them up and we'll try and ask the speakers and stuff as we go through, or you can raise your hands. The speakers will probably tell you if they want questions at the end or at the beginning or throughout, however you want. Although questions at the beginning would be weird. So maybe keep them to the middle or the end when they start speaking. So the hand raising functionality is available. You can use that. If you'd like to turn on your webcam and speak, that's fantastic. Although, as we said, we are recording, so if you don't feel comfortable, completely up to you. Right. We have, this is usually the point in the slides where we do introductions to like who the community, who the speakers are, and who the organisers are. But I kind of thought we'd do something different instead. Did you know? Oh, actually. We're doing introductions first. That's what we're doing instead. We are doing introductions. I'm reading the wrong slides. That's fine. So introductions. I was hoping we could just get a bit of interaction from people. We'll just go through a couple of people if you want to. We'd just like to know your name, who you are in your company, and what your role is. What are you looking forward to in today's meeting? And is it too early to get Christmassy? So I'll start off. I'm Matt Collins-Jones, also known as MCJ or the D365 Geek. I've just been promoted at my current company, TSG. I'm now a D365 and Power Platform Solution Architect. Whoop-de-doo, it's a job title. What do I hope to gain from today's meeting? I love all these speakers. They're fantastic speakers, and I'm really looking forward to what they're sharing today. Is it too early to get Christmassy? No, because I wrote this question and I'm already getting Christmassy. I've been building some Christmas Lego. I bought my first Christmas present today. I think it's fine to get Christmassy. So I'm going to invite anyone who would like to come off mute or turn on the camera and talk and sort of introduce yourselves. And if anyone would like to introduce themselves, let us know. Oh, we have Mr. Beard. Come on, Mr. Beard.
Now the question is, will it work on mobile? Because mobiles are terrible. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go.
See and hear.
Are you in the gym again?
No. I'm currently right now tidying the bedroom, so I'm multitasking at this point. So yes, I am Matt Beard. I am a developer, not just in Power Platform, in pretty much every other area as well, but focusing in Power Platform at the moment. What was questions? What do I want to gain from today? I just like to see people talk, hear what other people are doing. I've been in the PPOCC all day, so it's nice to have a break from that. Have a smaller group with a bit more interaction. Nice to see Malin talk. Me and Malin talk quite a lot, but I've never actually seen Malin talk, so no pressure. As for Christmassy, we all need a bit of cheer at the moment, don't we? So yeah, I think I've already got my Santa rope light out in work, so the office has already started. So I hold no remorse for that, I'm afraid. Christmas all the way.
Nice. I am all on board on that one, Mr. Bird. Thank you. Malin, do you want to introduce yourself?
I can do the introduction when I do my speaking, but I want to talk about the Christmassy. Yes, It is way too soon. I don't do any Christmas stuff until December 1st. That's just my rule.
I'm shocked at you, Malin.
And I'll take my comment back that I wanted to listen to Malin talk.
No, yeah. Switch it to Clarissa now. Yeah.
I might have some slides that you'll like, Matt, so please hang in there. I absolutely love Christmas, and I just don't want to start too early, because then you're sick of it before Christmas actually comes. But I do enjoy dragging it over to the dreadful January where absolutely nothing happens, and eating Christmas food in January, February, and March is okay. But I don't want to start too early. I'm the Grinch now.
A little bit, but we still love you. So that's the main thing. Alison, I think you've got your hand up. Do you have your hand up? You do.
Yeah, I do. I thought I'd do an intro. And, just for the lols. So my name is Alison. I feel like this is an AA meeting now. And I am with Maximus IT and Proximo 3. And today I'm looking forward to Malin's session on using Teams for dynamic solutions. I'm pretty intrigued by the title and looking forward to seeing the content. It's never too early to get Christmassy. That said, I'm a big fan of Halloween, and I do like to get the Halloween out of the way first before I start getting Christmassy.
See, for me, the problem with Halloween this year is that we can't trick and treat. So I can throw candy at kids to walk past. But
MCJ, you're missing the trick, because you buy all of the sweets as if people are going to trick or treat, and then you just eat them because nobody's allowed to come around.
Mind blown. I don't know how it differs from when I just regularly buy candy on sweets.
You can put it in like a plastic pumpkin head or something to make
and walk past the front door and just every time I do.
Just ring, like if you get a doorbell thing on your phone, like on YouTube, or doorbell sound or something, just then go and answer the door and help yourself to sweets.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Well, thank you. And thank you for everyone that piped up there. So yeah, today we do have a feedback form. That is the QR code in the bottom right. There will be a QR code at the end of the presentation as well. And we also we are on Twitter, so you can follow along with the CRMUG UK Northwest Twitter account, or D365UG UK MCR is the hashtag for this evening. So without further ado, I did say we'd do introductions. We don't tend to do, we tend to do like who is the committee and everything. I thought we'd do something a bit different, because I don't know whether you know this, but did you know that Joe Griffin was an MVP?
can't believe you've done this.
So
I can't believe you've done this.
Our very own committee member Joe Griffin has become an MVP on the 1st of August. Joe doesn't know about this slide. He has a different slide deck, which is why I said I'm going first to introduce everything, just so that I could do this. Joe is one of the most hardworking, fantastic human beings that I've met in this community. If you don't know who Joe is, firstly, he's an MVP, so you should know who he is. But secondly, he has a blog, and he's been blogging like every single week for like 5 years. The dude has absolutely smashed it. He's talked at conferences around the world. He is an expert in everything that he puts his hand to. He's a great speaker and he's a great source of knowledge. So this is very well deserved. And if you wouldn't mind coming off mute for just 1 second and giving Joe a round of applause, I would really appreciate that. So I nearly messed that one up, didn't I? So, but no,
Good thing I've got the camera on because I'm like about as red as the sun at the moment, I think.
Well, it's very well deserved, young sir. So, so we'll stop embarrassing you, and we'll just move on. So, just some general bump about CRM-UGs and direct communities. These are annual sponsors. They make things like this happen and give us these platforms to do this stuff. So thank you to our sponsors. We want you to get involved as well. Even though we are all virtual at the moment, this will not last forever. There will be a need for user groups in the future, but it does mean that we can take a hybrid approach. We don't think we're going to be doing UGs probably for the next 6 months in person, so we'll continue with this digital event for now. But we're always looking for new people to get involved, to instruct, to try and help and organize events. We do still have an open spot on our committee if anyone would like to join. Do let us know. It's just a bit of coordination, a bit of marketing, a few other bits. But yeah, do let us know if you want to get involved. We're always happy to have more people on the team. Oops. So yeah, this is what life used to be like. You used to be able to touch people and everything. That's great. But yeah, we used to be able to do great community events. We want to get back to this at some point, but we do still need people to communicate, to volunteer, to talk, to lead. So if you are interested, do let us know. Community Strong is a new hashtag by Dynamics Communities to try and keep the community together at this difficult time. So if you see the Community Strong hashtag, maybe there's a great way we can get the message out there that we are still running events and we are still trying to help people and do things. So that's all good. Membership, you can join if you want to be a member of the UG. You get access to loads of things like on-demand webinars, training, and all that sort of stuff as well. So it's a really good thing. But if you're here, you're probably a member already. So I'll move on. And virtual events like these, Ask the Experts discussions, study groups. There's loads of like study groups for exams and for different topics. All really great. And there's an academy. There is a lot in this slide deck. I should cut more stuff out. We'll edit this bit out. There's just so much that Dynamics Communities offer you as part of your subscription and your membership. So please do get involved and take a look at all the things that they have to offer. But without further ado, because I didn't want to go through all those slides, we want to get to the main attraction. No one likes the starter. You want the main course. And today we have 3 fantastic main courses. Actually, I'm getting hungry now. But yes, we have the fantastic, the wonderful, the amazing Clarissa Gillingham. If you don't know her, have you been living on a rock for the last few years? She is a superstar in the Power Addicts and the Power Platform community. She does loads of cool things with Canvas apps. She's been doing loads of great stuff with Canvas apps and CES recently. I'll totally be picking her brain because I've been doing all that recently as well and getting to grips with all that. So I'm going to hand you over to the fantastic Clarissa, who is going to go through Wi-Fi where we're going. We don't need no stinking Wi-Fi, which is a fantastic movie, Back to the Future. Love that title. So yeah, I'm going to shut up at this point, and I'm going to hand over to Clarissa.
Ace. So I will just share my screen, and Unintentionally, I've ended up picking a color palette that clashes wonderfully with your slide deck. So we are now in the realm of pink instead of in the realm of red. But yeah, no, hopefully I will be able to live up to that amazing introduction. But yeah, this is my talk on basically how to make offline compatible Canvas apps. And this is something that obviously a lot of customers will always be asking when you're trying to make an application for them, but can we use it offline, or we want to use it offline? What happens if the Wi-Fi goes down? So this is basically just a collection of the learnings that I have had through putting offline compatibility into a couple of customer applications. So hopefully I can help you guys do the same. So first off, a little bit just introductions for who I am. I've been in the Power Platform for only 1.5 years, actually. So not so long living under a rock if you haven't heard of me, as Matt was saying. But yeah, I'm currently, I've just this month become a Power Platform configuration consultant at ANS. And also this month, it's been a big month career-wise for me. I've started a role as a part-time technical storyteller for Microsoft's PowerCat team. Which is really pretty cool. So it's just basically sharing how the Power Platform has changed businesses all across the world. And previous to that, I was a business applications engineer at Silver Sands, and then before that, once we go back past 1.5 years, I had absolutely no idea of what the Power Platform was, or even Office 365. I was a complete newbie. And of course, got Twitter and LinkedIn on there. If you guys want to connect, that would be amazing. So on to our actual topic. And if you haven't guessed, of course, yeah, the film is Back to the Future. And there's the reference for us. So how does offline work in Canvas apps? Well, actually, what you may not know, but it's really, really fantastic, is that the Power Apps application, whether it's on the mobile like iOS or Android, the ones that you get off the Play Store, or whether it's the Windows 10 Power Apps player that you get from the Microsoft Store, they all have internal caches that they basically create encrypted storage within your device that only Power Apps can access. And there are two pivotal functions, save data and load data, and these allow you to either push data into that local cache or pull it back out. And there's another thing that is going to be pivotal to this, which is the connection.connected like syntax. So basically that returns true if you have a connection, and it returns false if you don't. So this is how we can actually trigger different logic and different functionality based on whether we're connected or whether we're offline. Of course, there are some limitations, and I'm going to go into these kind of first because the offline compatibility isn't like 100% perfect. So these are the things we need to be aware of. Cache data is only available to the app that stored it. So this means if you had some data in app A that you click a button and you save it down to the local cache, and you turn off your Wi-Fi and you open app B can't see that data from app A. So all of the caches are kind of silos that you can't reach into from another application. Also, cache data can't exceed the storage limit for the Power Apps on your device. That storage limit did go up, but I think it's still kind of in flux for different devices. Generally, as just a general rule of thumb, I'd say avoid using pictures or storing pictures in offline. So if you have scenarios where people need to go out and take photographs of something and they're wanting to store that offline and then push that back on, then oh, apologies. Can anyone else hear that?
Sorry, Emma.
So,
I've muted you, Emma. Sorry.
sorry, I wondered if my headset was broken there for a minute. So yeah, no. If you've got a scenario where people are taking photographs and they want to store that alongside their like form data, for example, and they want to store that offline and then push that up to their data source when they regain connectivity, then I would highly recommend using the actual native storage for the camera and then uploading after. And finally, because of the fact that you can only ever access your own cache for your application, you need to make sure that you get your users to open the application online once in order to populate everything so that then they can actually access it when they're offline. So this is kind of the methodology that this goes through. So it's all about them doing that initial visit online and pulling the data down into local collections that are then stored into the cache so that when they come back in, they can pull it from the cache. And interestingly, that cache data stays there regardless of whether you close the application or close the entire Power Apps like hosting application, or if you turn off your device and then turn your device back on while offline, you can still get to that data. So that kind of cache, it doesn't purge at every time that you close the host application. So that's enough talking. Let's actually have a look at something. So I'm just going to switch what I'm sharing 1 second. And some of you will recognize this application. I should have had fewer tabs open. Where are we? There we go. Oh, no, not that one.
I mean, if you don't have 30 tabs across 7 browsers open, are you even working in the Power Platform?
Yeah. This is true. I wasn't expecting it to be right at the bottom. There we go. Perfect. So this application might look familiar to some of you, but I'm not going to go. This was the application that I demoed for my Infinity form. But I'm not going to go into the workings of the Infinity form today. We're just going to be looking at how this application has been altered to make it offline compatible. So first thing, really vital thing in your app on start, this is where you start to actually collect down all of your data. Really important to do it in the on start so that you make sure that everything is done and pulled down before your user actually goes through and then wants to edit or manipulate that data. So the very first thing we do is we poll for this connection once. So we're using that connection.connected that I mentioned before. And of course, because I'm connected now, otherwise I wouldn't be able to talk to you guys, we can see that that's coming back as true. Now, I would highly recommend putting that into a global variable so that you're not having to continually poll all the time. You just do the check once and then go, okay, I've got that value stored down now, and I can just use my local copy of that value rather than continually polling. So beforehand, what I had, like before offline compatibility got pushed in, I was collecting down into a collection some data that was in my data source. And now to make that offline compatible, we just kind of expand upon that a little bit. So first off, we check whether we're connected. And then if we're connected, we pull down the data into our local collection. And then crucially, we make sure that we save that data into our cache. So the save data function works by saying this is the collection or container that it doesn't have to be a collection, but this is the container that is holding the information I want to store. And this is the name of the file I want you to make and put that data into. Then we say if we're not actually connected, what we want to do is we want to load data into this collection from this file. Perfect. That means that the first time they come into the application, when they're online, all of that data gets pulled down onto our device. And then if we open it again offline, all of that data gets pushed up onto the app from our device. And you can see there's a whole bunch of different data sources that this is used for. And you may think, okay, so I've done that for all of my data sources, I'm set. Unfortunately, no, because if you have a drop-down field in your application, if you're using SharePoint, then it probably, your items for this drop-down field looks a little bit like this, where you've got these choices that are being that are stored in that particular field in that SharePoint list. Now, if you're offline, the application can't go and ask SharePoint, hey, what are the choices for that field? So it will just return you with nothing and you won't have any items in your drop-down. And then, of course, users won't be able really to use the application offline. So you need to make sure that you do the exact same for these. So you check whether you're connected. I didn't change this to be my global variable, so slap on the wrist for me. But you check to see whether you're connected. You collect the choices into a local collection. You make sure that you store that in your device's cache. And then if you're offline, you make sure you pull that back. And this means that basically wherever in your application you would normally just refer to the data source, instead, what you do is you refer to your collection, your local copy. So essentially, in order to make your application offline compatible, you have to code it based on the assumption that you are going to be offline. And then you always have these like kind of key moments where you need to check for connection and then do either one or the other of uploading the data or storing it locally, ready for it to be pushed up at a later date when you've got connection. So let's have a look at that storing. If we just go through the app a second, and we'll just come into here. Perfect. And because I fiddled around with the on start, it didn't quite like it. But there we go. So what you'll see here is I've got a ton of stuff that we don't need to worry about that's in the start there. But when we hit save, this is again where we need to divert. So everything that we've done from the end of the on start for the application to the point of saving the record, that is assuming that we're offline. So it's all looking at the local collection. This is the point where we need to actually make that key moment of, okay, we need to poll and see whether we've got connection. So we check for connection, and if we're connected, if we are online, then we patch that data from our local copy of our record into the actual record in our data source. However, what do we do if we're not online? Well, first off, what I tend to do is I tend to create an extra collection, which is for holding my offline edits. So this collection here, we're just storing our current item into that collection. And then what we're doing is saying, okay, we've stored that, we've got to make sure that we push it down into our local cache so that it's going to be available the next time we open our application. Because even though this collection here is available to us locally, and so if we were to, for example, be using the application offline and then reconnect while still using the application, then we'd be able to access that data. If we were to be offline, make the changes, close the application or turn off the device, then we need to make sure that we've got it stored in the cache so that it can push up next time. And of course, we need to have some way of notifying our user that there is a manual step that they will need to make sure that they save the data again, or like press a different button on a different screen. It's normally nice to have like a separate kind of gallery where they can see their offline edits and they can just single press, just go, yep, that one I want to push up. I want to push that one up once they're back online. Now, interesting, what do we do if we are coming back into the application and either we're online or offline, but we want to pull through those edits that we made the last time we were offline? For this, we go back into the app on start, and we'll have a look at this code that I've popped in here. So this is after we've collected in all of our data sources, which is important. It has to be after that because we're going to use one of those internal collections in order to create the schema for our collection of offline edits. So first of all, the most important thing is if we just put in our load data code and happily just say, well, this is the name of our collection and this is the file that I want you to put into that collection, it will actually work. But what it will do is it will throw up an error that says unexpected error has occurred. And it can be very difficult to debug because there's no actual like kind of symptoms of this being the cause of the problem, because it will populate your collection correctly. The unexpected error comes from the fact that if we reach this code, hit this code, and we haven't told Power Apps what to expect for the schema for this collection, then it's got some data, it's got a container, it doesn't know the shape of the container, it does know the shape of the data. Power Apps just panics and throws up an error for us. So this is a neat little trick. We know that our offline edits are going to be in the exact same format as our actual online data. And what we can do is we can use first n to actually grab the 0th row. In that case, we just grab the schema, but we don't have any data from our actual online data repository, kind of polluting our offline edits data. So those are kind of your key elements there for getting this all up and running together. So I'll just go back to the presentation a second. There we go. Again, too many windows open. Turned out I had so many PowerPoint ones as well. But here we go. So you'll notice that everything that I mentioned there, I handily avoided talking about creating new records. And that's because creating new records is really difficult, because if you want to try and get the correct IDs or GUIDs, you basically can't. So you're in this situation where you could potentially create a new record in your collection, but when you push it up to your data source, it's obviously going to be given an ID or a GUID that then doesn't match whatever you've got in your collection, because there's no way that you can preempt that unique GUID. So there's a little bit of a kind of limitation there. Normally, it's most useful for scenarios where the records are already created, but just need to be filled out. And the best situation for it is where you only have one person who can actually access and edit any given record. So I've got here about how to avoid, so if you've got multiple people who can access a record, then it becomes a difficulty of someone could have edited it offline, while in another area someone could have edited the same record online. And how do we marry those two kind of edits together, and how do we make sure that we don't have conflicts? So this is kind of just a bit of an example of how you could go about fixing that problem, but I would recommend kind of keeping it to scenarios where there's only one person who can actually edit the record, and where the record is already created for you at the start. So I think I somehow managed to actually stay on time and keep within 20 minutes. But that's it for me. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Clarissa. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, I think we've got a raised hand already. There's someone with a question, if that's all right. Jean or Jean?
Yeah, it is. From the across Atlantic of you guys. Montreal, Canada. One question to you. Will it work based on the Windows App Store also for the offline capabilities?
Yes, yeah. So the Windows 10 Power Apps player that you download from the Microsoft Store, that acts in the exact same way. So this kind of methodology for making things offline compatible, it works with iOS, Android, and the Windows 10 player.
Great, awesome. And do you have any use cases over huge data capacity, like large data, beside attachments, like a lot of data, let's say about a gig of data to be put offline?
Yeah, so this is where, especially like once it starts going into attachments and things, this is where you start to run into the worry of running into the storage limitation that Power Apps has. So the Power Apps, just like the host application, can only access a certain percentage. I can't remember exactly what the percentage is now, but it can only access a certain percentage of the storage on your device, on the device that's running it. Okay. So I would say highly recommend to avoid anything where you've got attachments actually being used offline. So if for example, you have a scenario where someone needs to go out and do an inspection on, say, like bridges in a national forest, they're not going to have connection. And if they need to take photographs, I would recommend that they take photographs in the native photo application, and then when they come back online and hit the button to push the data up, it prompts you to say, hey, would you like to attach any photos you took during the visit? And then you can add those on. But yeah, I would say, especially once you get into having attachments in, it's unwise to try and store them in the local cache.
Okay, great, appreciate it. And by the way, thumbs up to the group. A lot of good energy here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think you answered most of my questions as well, Clarissa, because I had questions on like how do you handle edits when someone edits something online? How do you handle creating new records? Also, because I'm from a CDS space, I always think about like how do you handle lookups? I guess the idea is you can't really, unless you're going to pull down every record from your entire system to then be able to fill those in. So.
Yeah, so actually that application, it does handle lookups. So I've pulled down the list that I'm looking up to into a collection, and then using the fact that you can patch lookups just using the essentially you have to do the array of the value and the ID. Yeah. Then yeah, you can actually just say, okay, so I'm looking up to this record in this local collection, and when that data pushes up, it actually translates to being the exact same thing as I'm looking up to this actual data source.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Does anyone else have any more questions for Clarissa before we move on to Malin? We'll probably have a little bit of time at the end. If you can't think of any right now, we might keep them to the end. But anyone else want to raise their hands or anything? No? Okay. Well, if you do have any more questions, you can drop them in the chat, or we can pick any extra questions up at the end. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our fantastic second speaker, Malin Martnes. You know Malin, everyone lovingly refers to her as the talent MVP, but unfortunately HR killed talent, so now she's the HR MVP. She is a superstar in the community. I just saw on my memories that it was 1 year ago today where we met in Brussels.
Yes.
Happy friendiversary.
Yes, happy friendiversary. Yay.
So yeah,
Wow.
I'll hand over to Malin and she will take us through Teams and D365.
Yes, that is crazy. It's a year.
On you.
Yes. So, the very fancy name of utilizing Teams for your Dynamics 365 solutions. Or why not just call it Dynamics Apps and Teams, which is what it really is. So this is me. I am, as Matt mentioned, I was the first and will always be the only talent MVP because talent is dead. I'm still the only MVP with a focus on HR, hoping to change that soon. But I started in CRM, so I've worked with CRM since 2009. I started as a customer, so I have by some kind of miracle don't have gray hairs yet because I started with quite a bad solution, but since then moved on to becoming a consultant. I laugh very often and too high. I have been in this community for some time now, a couple of years. I'm a massive Liverpool fan, which I might be careful saying in this user group. And I'm a certified beer judge. Massive Liverpool supporter. Just gonna leave that there for 2 seconds. So I would once the world opens up again and the Manchester user group is up and running again, I will definitely be joining you in person. Just to watch a game with Matt Beard. Yes. I also, with my good friend Anna in Peru, run a user group for HR. So if you're interested in HR, we had our first meetup yesterday, and we're going to have meetups once every month. So feel free to join the group. Did you know Joe is an MVP?
Oh, God.
Best slide ever. Best slide
And
ever.
Matt should be one.
Yes, let's focus on that instead.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. A bit about Clarissa's Back to the Future, because there are 3 Back to the Future movies, and one they go back in time. So I thought I would just go with the flow with Clarissa and go a bit back in time.
It is, but oh, bless them. Bless their little socks.
This is when I started working with
They donate.
and I worked with it in Outlook. I did everything in Outlook. It was great. I had my CRM system. I had my emails. I could do everything in CRM. This is pictures from Jukka's blog because I didn't have any good slides from way back then. But it was great as a customer. This was really awesome. I could do everything here. So I miss it. And that's why I'm so glad now that Teams is coming and kind of taking over. So this is, for me, it's going back to how it was, only better. So I'm going to go through a couple of the apps, and I'm going to start, of course, with HR, naturally, because there are some cool stuff in HR. And this, everything I'm showing is out-of-the-box functionality that just works as long as you, 1, have an HR environment, and 2, have Teams, of course. You have the HR leave and absence functionality that you easily add. You have a chat, a cute little HR bot, and you sign into your environment. Here you could view your leave and absence balances. You could take time off, and you could actually see your time off. You also have the dark mode is highly underrated. I love it. And you can see all your personal time off. So you don't have to go to HR and say, okay, so how many vacation days or vacation hours do I have left? Nobody. And then you have to wait for a couple of days because I don't remember. I have to check it out. You can actually have a full overview over this in Teams. And you can send a request and take time off. So if you want to request some time off, I'm doing a personal time off. I'm doing it in hours. It could be hours or days. Set your dates and you can set a reason code if that is needed for the system. And once you have submitted it, it goes in as a submitted time off of leave type. And once it is completed, HR has approved it or your manager has approved it, then you can see the upcoming time off. So it really flows very good. And if you can just take time off, then it could be automatically approved, but usually it goes through the manager and or HR. And of course, if it is rejected, then you won't see it here. Then you have to actually talk to your manager to know why it was rejected. And you can also take a look at the team calendar. So these are the people in my environment that I'm on the team with. And I can see if they have any scheduled time off in the next week. And I can also see further ahead of time. So I can do my planning, say, okay, I want to do a workshop in the next week, but I could go into the leave and absence calendar and see if they're available. And come March 2021, this will automatically update your Outlook calendar. Yay, which is really great. So once your time off is approved, then it goes into the system and it automatically updates your Outlook calendar, because Outlook is where everything should be. Moving on to marketing, which is what I was supposed to work with when I grew up. So kind of dear to me, but of course also works in Teams. And here I have just embedded the entire marketing app in Teams because I can, which is great. I also have the HR app embedded. That doesn't work. It used to work. It has somehow died. But you can add any kind of tabs you want. But here I've embedded marketing, and I can actually do everything that I work with in Teams within the app. So I could do all my customizations. I could go to my event. I can actually use my marketing or whatever Dynamics apps within Teams, which is exactly what I could do 9 years ago. Wow, only in Outlook. So it is very good having it back, because as I said, when I was a customer, it was awesome having everything in one place. I didn't have to remember the URLs. I didn't have to go, okay, so where did I need to go to log on to the system? I could go to Teams and everything's there. Great. And of course, marketing has finally come up with you can stream your events in Teams, because they have from the start had On24, which is a system hardly anyone has ever heard of and hardly anyone can afford to use. So of course that was the system they chose. You can now do others, but you can, most important, you can also do Teams. So you could do it as a normal meeting at this one, or you could do it as the bigger live event if you want that, which is a good thing. And you can also set up different parameters. So do you want to set the recording available for the speakers and or attendees, and do you want to do a Q&A and everything? directly from your marketing system. So you don't have to do, okay, so first I want to set up the marketing event, and then I want to go to Teams, and then I want to do things in Teams, and then I have to remember to download the recording, and yeah, it all fixes it. And of course, you can also send out the event communications with the Teams check-in. So that is, you have everything in one place. Again, which is exactly what I want. No booze. So far, so good. I'm now moving on a bit to, again, the old school that is still very much used. So the current thing of doing, because storage costs money in CRM or in sales, customer service, in the apps, CDS, whatever you call it. Storage costs. So the old times because we want to have our files. And what did we do? Well, we created it in SharePoint because that was the only way of doing it if you didn't know code, because this worked out of the box perfect. But you then had a folder in SharePoint that first created the account with a horrible GUID, and then under the account, it created an opportunity file. In the opportunity file of that specific account, under all accounts, you found each specific folder for each specific opportunity. And then you found your opportunity and your files, which made this horrible breadcrumb your GUIDs. Horrible. And what happened? Well, you didn't have any security in SharePoint, because of course SharePoint didn't care that your Dynamics had security. I don't care. Free for all. There you go. Or you had to make your own security rules and setup. And yeah, who needs security, Matt? It worked. It was the only out-of-the-box functionality we had. But now, even sales loves Teams, or especially sales loves Teams, because now you have this amazing little thing, collaborate in Teams. What happens when you press that button? And again, this just works out of the box, no configure. There's a couple of small background just boxes you have to tick, but no development, no nothing. The first thing you do is you select the team. So I'm on with my sales team, and I want to put the folder under my sales teams. And I see, okay, I have two. I have the super customer and the general. I don't really want to put this anywhere there, so I just create a new tab. And here you can also set it as private. You have security. Awesome. Or you could just set it open for everyone. And then you can add your team members. So you can select other people in your organization to have access to this. Super. Click finish. And this could take a few minutes. And not like any of the other, this could take a few minutes in Microsoft. This takes under a couple of minutes most often. So it's not it could take a couple of minutes and it takes 20 minutes. It actually, I think I timed it for about a minute. So very good. And now you have your team. You can take a look at your account. You can add new accounts, so you can take a look at all your opportunities, or you could take a look at one opportunity, or you can do stuff with this account from within Teams. But the best thing is all the files are stored in Teams. Still SharePoint, but it's in Teams. The breadcrumb is actually a lot easier. And best thing of all, and it could save you quite a bit of money on licensing. Just don't tell anyone that. Because you could have people in your organization that are working with the sales team that are working on the documents that doesn't need to go into Dynamics for anything, but they still need to do the documents. They could still work with the documents from within Team in your own channel, which is super. So, Dynamics loves Teams. And I could go on, I could show the customer service, you could have your queues, you could have your dashboards, you could have your Power BI dashboards embedded as a dashboard in Dynamics, embedded in Teams. I mean, you could just go on forever with this. Did I mention I'm a Liverpool supporter? I had to throw that in. I sped through through that, but are there any questions?
Just pressing.
Go for it, Matt.
Yes.
So that last bit is the thing I'm really interested in. So the collaborate, I've seen the collaborate button and I've gone, should I press that button? Nah. So you're saying that when you do that, you can link the record to a channel in Teams, and the files are stored in the Team SharePoint site collection provisions. If you're inside Dynamics, does it link up that document library to that relevant location? Do you know? I
could show you.
Oh, even better. Live demos, what could go wrong?
So here I have to find one that actually has the files. Could be good. If I here add no, I'm gonna go with the super customer because I know that has content. And here you can see I have added an opportunity. So this is the opportunity and it has a file, a new document from my good friend and finally MVP, Thomas. Yay. And this. I have a lot of stuff in my Dynamics. Yeah. This was, yes.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah. And it's a the path as well. Yeah. It isn't that horrible.
And the source as well.
Yes, it's actually understandable.
Yeah, source just used to be OneDrive or SharePoint, and now we have a source of MS Teams. That's awesome. Thank you for showing me that.
It's really great. And in not too long, I'm going to start to try and automate to create that through Flow. So, you know who I'm calling?
Joe.
Coming MVP, Matt. Oh. As always. So it is just, I love it because it works so quickly as well. Because if I go to whatever account and I want to say, okay, so if I have time, I have no idea how I'm on time.
Who cares? Oh yeah, I'm supposed to I'm the organizer. Oh well.
Because I could say, okay, so I wanted this to be on the company and I general just because shouldn't. And that's it.
Wow.
It's it. It works.
Takes me longer to test the flow.
I know. and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Because I have now created it up. Well, of course, since I did the general tab, it doesn't look that good because it's only a tab here. But it's connected. The files are connected. Everything just works.
That's awesome.
Yes. It works just so good. So yeah, very happy with the Teams. And as I said, for me, it's like going back to back to the future, so to speak, back to 2011, where I had everything in one place and everything just worked. So which is great. And for me, I'm not a developer, so I don't do dev stuff, and I sure as I don't want to do much SharePoint stuff and go find the folders and collaboration for people outside of Dynamics. Nah, you didn't do it because it was too hard. Now you can.
Teams is the future, as we
Teams
all know.
is the future, yes. Until they put everything in it and it dies.
Probably, yeah.
When you're mentioning, sorry, I know Alison's got a hand up. I need to throw it to Alison, but when you mentioned about putting everything being inside of Outlook, I just remember being sat there for 10 minutes while I was trying to get my Outlook to open because all of CRM is installed inside my Outlook and it doesn't work anymore because it's not designed for that. And now we're trying to go back the other way. Let's install it all again into it. It's fine. It's fine.
What's the worst that could happen? Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, Alison, you've been waiting very patiently, so I hand the microphone over to you.
I'm very patient. It's not even an important question. What I wanted to ask, I'm not sure if I'm like going off on a different tangent. Let's say, because all of my clients, or most of my clients, are Microsoft partners, and so they all have Teams. So let's say I take a role on for a partner and I want to be able to share CVs with them. Could I do that in Teams? Could we just have a channel in Teams and I can? No, I don't think.
If you want to see the Dynamics functionality, you need a Dynamics license, and you can only share it to your own teams. Like,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a Dynamics license. I just it was just how was I going to get the document from Dynamics into Teams so that someone can see it without having yeah, because I can make a guest on my Teams.
If you invite, yes, that's the thing. If you invite them to your Teams and you add them to the channel or the team, and you then add the Dynamics to that team, they will have access to the files.
You know, I'm going to do this with you, right?
Yes. Feel free.
Looking forward to it. I'm sure we
what
both
are friends for?
Exactly.
Okay, I'm just conscious of time, everyone. So thank you very much, Malin, for that really informative talk there. If anyone's got any more questions, then please feel free to fire them in the chat and we'll do our best to get your questions answered or at the end. So all it leaves me to do now is to introduce yet another MVP crazy this evening. So EY was awarded the MVP award in August. That's right, isn't it, EY? Or was it September?
No.
September? No, September.
No.
It's recent. No?
October.
Eventually
Eventually
you
get there.
Eventually get there. But anyway, EY is going to be talking to us now about Canvas apps and addresses, I believe.
Yep.
So over to you, EY.
I shall share my screen. If this works. Okay. Woohoo. I'm going to minimize Joe there in the corner. So I'm going to be doing the wonderful thing. I know a couple of you have seen this before, but we built this out a little bit about custom address pickers within Canvas apps presented by yours truly. So this is me This is my face for those who are not familiar with my face. That's my logo for those who are not familiar about my logo. They're social, and thanks to Diana the States, who I ripped off the slide from in terms of the little graphics. I thought they looked really good rather than just text. I am really, really privileged to have been awarded MVP in October. I do not have a picture of Joe because Joe is here live, but I joined the ranks of Joe, who obviously has been an MVP for a long time without people knowing about it, and he is one of my role models in the MVP community and the Bespoke Badger and a variety of other places. So really appreciate and very humbled and honoured, which I will say on this if it's being recorded, to be alongside Joe and other MVPs. I'd also like to plug my show called The Oops Factor, which is now coming up for the year anniversary. Several people on this call have been on it. If you would like to appear on it and I have not yet reached out to you, or you have not yet reached out to me, drop me a line. We have a lot of people signing up, and it'll be great to have more of the community come on. Or if there's somebody who you feel that would benefit from spotlighting, Joe, incidentally, has already been on the show, but if there's anybody else who you think would be good, drop me a line and I'll reach out and get them. It's about sharing people's stories and learning from it and talking about when things don't go right, which most people tend not to talk about. Anyhow, with that being said, I'm going to paint the scenario. So the scenario is like this. I landed in my role at ANS Group, and Clarissa is now virtually sitting next to me because we actually signed into the same teams, which is great. On the first day of lockdown in the UK. And unlike Clarissa, my background is Dynamics 365 and a couple of other bits and pieces in general IT, but model-driven apps through and through. And on day 2.5, I was told we need to get a triage apparatus for COVID for all our clients who are in local authorities. EY, you know about this Power Platform stuff. You're in charge. I'm like, what about induction? All the HR stuff are like, sod it. You don't need to do that. We need this out there. We need this like 3 weeks ago. So I started to play around with Canvas apps. I played with Canvas apps a little bit before. I am a functional guy. I get functionality. I'm not a UI UX guy. For that, I look up to Clarissa for that sort of stuff and a variety of other people. So I started to play around with Canvas apps. And we put together a very quick proof of concept for triaging. This was for local authorities where the vulnerable people essentially within the community will phone up and say they need something. They're not allowed out of the house. They're locked, they're under lockdown. They need stuff. They need stuff that's medical. They need shopping. They need whatever it is. And they will call up the local authority who was offering a service, and the local authority would take the details and would then go and get volunteers to go out and deal with it for them. So that was cool. Actually really felt like you were making an immediate absolute difference, unlike large enterprise projects, which are very corporate sometimes and go on and on. So it was good. So we did that and we built an app. And part of the app was capturing address information, because if somebody calls up that they need something, we need to sort of get a name, get a contact details, and find out where we need to take everything to. So we need an address. And iteration 1 all the way through to about iteration 3 or iteration 4 of it, because we were really agile in doing this, you put in the address. But because these were for local authorities like reporting on data. And there is something called the UPRN, which stands for the Unique Property Reference Number, which is something that until recently, and I will elaborate on that shortly, only local authorities had access to, because they want to be able to see, are you going back to exactly the same building? If you take a block of flats, for instance, you could have a general address for them, a flat 1, flat 2, flat 3, and they're all allocated. If you have a house, it only has a single one. But if you convert the house into, say, flats, as lots of people in London seem to have done over the last few years, the local authority allocates it. So it's an absolute unique ID for that specific dwelling. So the flat, the smallest unit of dwelling within a larger building. And they want to know if they've gone back to the same property, how many visits are done, and all the rest of that they can report on it for whoever consumes that data, who, to be honest, I really wasn't caring that much about, because I was more about getting the functionality in so they could serve people rather than some of the analytics that they really like to do around this sort of thing. The problem was that we needed to get that. So we had access to an API, which we could call it. But again, we were putting in address information, and for anybody familiar with contact centers, they don't always put the address information in correctly. How do you spell Lauderdale Road? How are you pronouncing Lauderdale Road that they're taking it over the phone? There could be different spellings, and we want a consistent address information in there. So what we came up with was we want an address picker. There are several address pickers out there. I've used Postcode Address Finder in the past. I've implemented it with a bit of code even. Amazing. I know I'm not a developer, but I've occasionally dropped like a line or two of code around. A bit of model-driven apps, like on a contact form. In a model-driven app, you put in a postcode and it will come up. But this was a Canvas app. And this was like, okay, how the heck do we do this? So what we did was we built a form. And as you can tell, I really am model-driven. If Clarissa had been on board at that point, things would have looked a lot sexier, because she is a real whiz. I mean, you saw the app that she just showed. I mean, look at this, right? I don't do, you know, smart and sexy with Canvas apps. I'm learning. Picked up some things from her along the way. So we put in a postcode lookup that they could put in the postcode, and it would go away and call this API, and it would return a list of postcodes, which was great. I learned about custom connectors. So within about 5 hours, I had my first custom connector up and running. Yes, okay, I wasn't working on it straight for 5 hours, but I had to do some other things as well, and needed to work out how the hell you create a custom connector and what an API is. Again, I'm not a developer. I'm not used to these sort of things. I go out to the devs to do this sort of thing. So we put this in, and it was great. We use collections. I had no idea what collection was. I'd heard about it in PowerAddict hashtag on Twitter and some other things, but I had no idea. But we used a collection. We dumped the info in. So the only bit that's blurred out there is the actual API key, because I can't show that because it's a local authority key, and they'd be very, very upset. But anyhow, called the API, created a local collection of the data which we could reference, and below is a sample of it. That was great. My mind was blown. Freely admit it. I'm like, what is this wizardry? Which was amazing. But then we had a problem, because I had put the postcode in. It had gone away, had retrieved and shoved all the details for that postcode into the collection. But then I wanted to actually put it on the form and split it out, that it would split out the address, because it's great. You can think, you know, first part of the address goes in address 1, and the second part of the address goes in address 2, and the town and the city and all the rest of it, it goes in. The UPRN, incidentally, we weren't surfacing on the form. We were storing it down when we were putting the record in. So it was just stored at a database level. So I really wasn't worried too much about that, because we were patching that. But the problem was how to split it up. So start to look like, okay, so initially it returns to me a drop down, because I've got it as a drop-down box of the collection details, and it's great. But it's only showing me one field from the collection. Okay, I thought, wonderful. I played with Excel quite decently over the years. I'm going to concatenate it. There's a concatenate function. It's great. The problem with concatenate was, well, why don't I show you? So if I put in a postcode here, and I go off, it's going to think for a moment, and hopefully, if this works, this is going to return postcode. So this returns, got postcode, and this is everything for that address, which is around the corner for me. And the reason I use this is, although the formatting isn't done pretty great in this example, but I have a combination of houses and flats. So I want to be able to show this data. So I want to turn around and say, right, I can pick it, and it should show flat 3 and address 1 and street 1 and flat and you know, the rest of it in address 2. But this is a concatenated line, which means I start needing to do things if this column is blank. Well, that started to be a problem, because I couldn't work out a way of properly doing it. In a regular form, you turn around and say if the value is blank, but this is on a line-by-line basis, and it didn't really like that. So it kept showing the comma when it shouldn't have had a comma, because the flat field, the flat column rather, for this entry, there is no flat. So I could show it in here, but then I would click it, and it would populate everything into street 1. And I could populate everything into street 2, because if you concatenate a field, at least coming from a collection, when you do a if this field, is called address result, if I do address result dot selected, which is what the code in here is, the only option you get after that with the dot notation is dot value. You can't turn around and say, give me that result, and then just give me a specific column from it. So that was a problem. That was quite a big problem because it didn't split the address up nicely. So I thought then, okay, when I pull the address into the collection, I'm going to concatenate the fields that it's returning. So I can refer to it. So then I'd have the GUID in the collection, and I could refer to it and pick it up. The problem was that sort of turned around into collectionception, because when I concatenated, and I haven't done this because it looks absolutely horrible and horrendous, if you concatenate values that are coming back before you shove them in the collection, it shoves a whole table in every single column for every single row, and is really, really bad. And I couldn't do anything with that at all. So it was a problem. It was a massive problem. I was struggling with this, and I put out Power Addicts using hashtag Power Addicts on Twitter, and some very lovely people, including 1 or 2 people on this call, were extremely helpful and went through the syntax with me. And we tried a couple of different things with syntax, but then we found a syntax that worked, because what we did was we had an option for add columns, and I didn't know about this add columns. Bear in mind, I was at that point 12 hours into finding out the collections existed and working out how they worked. Working out the additional syntax I was getting there, but it was very new to it. So we made an initial collection. Then what we did was, with the result from the collection, we created a second collection, and we added a column to, or rather we added a column to, I can't remember, I think it was, we just added a column to the initial collection, and in that we added the additional column in which we concatenated the values. So as you can see there, we concatenated the values. Oh yeah, it is. I'm reading my code. I can see we did use the same collection. Try putting in a separate collection as well, but thought just keep the same collection. So we'll pull in the initial information, then it would loop through and it would add in and add another column, which lovingly I called test, in which I concatenated, well, the source is called subname, which is the flat, building number, which is the actual building number, and thoroughfare, which of course is ye fancy English for street, as we generally know it. And that worked nicely. When I went to see the collection in the drop down, it was absolutely great because it was giving the result. And this then created the following. So it always returned the first result as a pre-selected one. I didn't bother trying to work out if I could just return it as blank until I actually clicked in it, but probably could. So this being 670 Finchley Road, it's populated Street 1 here into Street 1. But if I change it to flat 3, 672 Finchley Road, it's now split it out. So we got some logic here on the fields to turn around and say, if there is a value, then do that. And because we have the collection working with the additional column that this is returning, this drop down is a single column, being that new column that created. So when we do address picker dot selected, we can then do for each field, we can then do that this is going to be the subname and this is going to be the thoroughfare and the rest of that. And there's a bit of logic then on this specific field, which is to turn around and say that if the value of the building subname field is blank, then show something else. We switch it around, as you can see. So we got that working really, really well. And our clients were extremely happy with it and rolled out, and quite a few people are using that. So with that, I would like to say thank you, not only to the organizers of this UG, and not only to Joe for being an absolutely amazing MVP, but I would also like to thank Clarissa, as I said, to join, because Clarissa spent several hours of her time in helping me get this up and running. And, you know, one of the things in which we say, and as Matt said at the beginning, you know, the community hashtag and stuff, it really is, and especially during lockdown and social distancing and all events, you know, people have reached out. I know of other efforts that people have made. You know, we jump on calls, we help each other. I heard a story recently about somebody in the States who told his social network that he actually was down with COVID-19, and they offered to go on sales calls for him. even though they worked in different companies, they said, don't worry, we'll handle it. We'll help you through it. We'll make sure that everything's good. So Clarissa, thank you ever so much for devoting your time. And I know that it's an absolute eyesore of an app, and that if you were around and having dealt with it, it would be so much better. But really appreciate that. And, you know, let's keep on spreading all the love around. And excuse me. And for those people who are actually wondering, this entire thing is what you do when you take PowerPoint to the next level, because everything that I've just shown you is a Canvas app. So why do what you do? Okay, there's some things, animations and stuff potentially, and you're not going to embed major videos in it, as I know some people do when they do PowerPoints, but you lose a bit of the animation, but you can get code running and working with samples. So strongly suggest for your next presentation, see if you could do it in a Canvas app if you're talking about Power Platform or D365. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, EY, for sharing that. It's good to see Power Apps being used to address a real sort of business sort of requirement or need. So yeah, really good. Does anyone have any questions for EY?
There was one thing actually I forgot to mention, which I alluded to earlier, which is a week or two back, Mr. Beard, who is on the call, Data 8 has a postcode lookup, which now, if you subscribe to, now actually includes the UPRN. So I haven't taken a look personally at it. I've seen the documentation around it. It's on the Microsoft site as well about being one of the pieces of data returned. So if you need to get that for whatever you want, go subscribe to it, because my local authority one that I used is just within the local authority space. You cannot access it if you're outside of the local authority domain.
I would definitely second that. The great solution, and the guys there are really great at helping you out, even when the issue is caused by yourself and your own stupidity. That's what's happened to me this week. Okay,
Carl.
great. Carl, you've got your raised hand. Go for it.
And I was just wondering why, there's several PCF controls in the gallery for UK lookup, and there's now an address lookup from Microsoft. Would you go that route now rather than your own version?
So, couple of answers to that. Clarissa actually made me aware in the summer of it before she joined ANS, but at that point it wasn't in GA that we started to roll things out, so we couldn't. That's the first answer. The second answer is from having looked at it, it's much better in the US than the UK. And the third one is we had to return the UPRN, which Microsoft was not returning in it, and it was sort of one of the conditions for rolling in the usage of the app. The local authorities needed to report because they had to report back from local government to central government, and they needed that because although I never realized it before, despite my work with local authorities, everything that they do with citizens, they want to tie back to the UPRN just to see how they're serving different areas and they can show different things. So a combination of those, really.
You would do the same again rather than extending what was out there?
I would take a look and see what it would be possible to do. Again, right tool for the right job. Technology moves on. If there's a Data 8 subscription, possibly do it through the Data 8 stuff. Again, we'd turn around and see what we could do.
Good stuff. Anyone else got a question for EY or a question on any of the talks tonight? Okay, so rather than continue the long and awkward silence, let's get things. Yeah, exactly. Let's get things wrapped up in fairly short order. So usually helps if you have your team windows all ready to go first, but let's just freestyle it. Okay, so we hope you found this evening really useful. Thanks again to all of the speakers for putting their own time aside and obviously showing us some really great things this evening. In terms of the next meeting, it probably will be next year at this rate, maybe around January or February. We will try and keep you posted on that. Be sure just to check out the user group website. All the updates will be on there for any new events. We're always looking for new speakers. So if you have got a talk that you'd like to present, maybe you've got a user story, an actual recent project you've been involved in, you'd like to share it with us, with the community, then please do reach out to either myself, Matt or Dirk on social media. I'd be more than happy to get you along. Make sure that you scan the QR code on here. Make sure you fill out your feedback forms. It's really important. We can help to try and make these events more relevant to you, and it also helps the speakers as well in terms of any feedback that you can give them to. So what it leads me to say is that we're going to be going across now to the Bespoke Badger in lieu of an actual in-person drink. So if you go to this link on here, you should be able to see on the calendar for today the Bespoke Badger. So feel free to come join us after this. We can talk through and have Power Platform and Dynamics 365 related shenanigans in there in due course.
The first round is on Joe as well, because he's in MVP.
Apparently
well, and EY as well, I would say.
Yes, but part of it is only because you showed me the way, Joe.
Showed me the way. I'm touched. I really am. And I've got a whole load of things to investigate on social media as a result of this evening as well. So that's going to be very good fun.
T-shirts are being made, man. T-shirts are being made.
I know. I think I showed a weakness at the start of it. I should remember this from my school days. You show weakness early on, and people just pounce, don't they? Ah, well.
Are we thinking about Brussels again?
Probably. Oh,
what's
yes.
been happening on social media, Joe?
Oh, Brussels. Well, to hear that and more, such as what happened to me and Matt in Brussels, come along to the Bespoke Badger.
I'll be there later on.
Okay, so thank you all again.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, all the speakers, all the attendees, everyone. Thank you for everything.
Thank you very much for having us.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
You too. Thank
You too.